Happy almost spring equinox. I am recording this the week of spring equinox, which is happening this weekend. And I thought, what better time than to talk about how do we translate this really ancient practice, this ritualization of what was celebrated for agricultural harvest, for celebrating the gods and goddesses, for the turn in the year. How do we take that beautiful ritual and bring it into modern day times in our business, in our creative projects, in our careers? How do we take this beautiful ancient knowledge and work with it? Work with the energy portal that we have available to us. Well, that is what we're going to talk about today in the Rise to Her podcast. The spring equinox is a portal, and there is a beautiful modern translation of how to create with the energy of spring. So let's get into this. Welcome to Rise to Her, the podcast for purpose-driven leaders, professionals, and creatives who are no longer willing to sacrifice their peace, power, and purpose for someone else's version of success. Here we peel back the layers of conditioning, hustle culture, and high-functioning burnout to reconnect with what's real, your inner wisdom, your intuitive voice, and your soul's truth. This is where science meets spirituality, where healing becomes embodied, and where success is redefined through alignment, not performance. I'm your host, Emily Greenway, trauma-informed alignment coach, spiritual scientist, and believer in a more meaningful world. In each episode, you'll hear grounded insights, soul-led conversations, and practical tools to help you lead from your truth, reclaim your energy, and rise fully into the life you were born to live. Because the world doesn't need more people performing. It needs more people fully alive. Let's rise. Some of you may be feeling it right now. The light has started to come back. I am in Portland, Oregon, and yesterday we hit a high of 76 degrees. Let me tell you, there was no rain. The sky was blue. And man, my energy was feeling the spring. And with that creative juice, that insight, that, oh my gosh, I need to get all of these things done. I need to get that next quiz out. I need to get that next opportunity out. They were coming in. Okay. And historically, this makes sense because this moment in the year, the spring equinox, was treated as a portal. The spring equinox is the moment when light and dark are exactly balanced, or almost exactly balanced, depending on the source that you look at. Day and night are meeting in this equal measure. But then after this happens, and that's going to happen on Saturday, the 21st of 2026. So after that moment, the northern hemisphere begins receiving more light every single day. If you're in the southern hemisphere, it's flipped and it gets darker, right? So I am talking to my northern hemisphere people, or if you are in the southern hemisphere, you can just think of this as your as what would happen around September. And for thousands of years, cultures around the world understood that when the light came back, it meant it was time to prepare the soil, plant the gardens. The land was waking up again. It was a time to decide what seeds were actually worth growing in our crops this year, right? And they understood something that we forget all the freaking time in our modern life, is that one, we are deeply connected to nature. We are nature. And you cannot harvest what you never plant. And the seasons are actually offering us a really interesting framework for how energy works here on this planet. I like to think of the seasons as a 3D model of energy that is available for us to show us, hey, this is how you can best use the energy, the rhythms, and this is what's actually externally there to support you in that manifestation, in that building, okay? And your intuition gets to be your internal guidance system for how to do that and utilizing that soul-aligned values in your soul code. But the seasons show us what type of energy is naturally available to us at different points in the years. So just as a recap, winter is about reflection. Spring is that creation energy. Summer is expansion. And fall is release, right? Summer, we are creating, we are planting. Summer, we are expanding. Like the days are really long, and maybe we're removing a few crops that we planted that in the springtime that weren't working. In the fall, it's like we're letting it go. We're reaping what we harvest, and then we're letting things rest. Nature moves through the cycles of creation, maintenance, and destruction. Those are the 3 cycles that it always moves through. And right now we are in the creation phase, or at least stepping into it, which means because we are nature, something inside of you might be starting to wake up too. And if you haven't asked the question, well, use this podcast as a little tap on your shoulder to say, hey, what am I waking up to? How can I use this energy to support you? So maybe there's some ideas that you've been holding on to. Maybe there's some projects you've been thinking about. Maybe there is a huge different direction you've been curious about. This is where you start to explore that and say, what would be fun? But there is asterisk here. Again, here's what I've noticed, especially with those of us who care deeply about our work. And that is when the spring energy arrives, it doesn't always feel inspiring. I know I've experienced this. It feels like a lot of pressure when we approach it with, we must come to fruition with everything that's coming in. Suddenly there are ideas everywhere. There's this momentum that's building inside of us. And instead of feeling creative, the human form, guilty here, can start to feel really overwhelmed. I recently could feel the energy of spring coming in. I'm teaching a live workshop on the Spring Equinox. I have a retreat coming up this year. I'm launching a few different approaches to my offers, right? The inspiration, the ideas, the movement, they are here. But instead of being really excited about it, I found myself being really freaking irritated. Like I was genuinely annoyed. And I asked myself this yesterday, why does this feel so frustrating? And here's what I realized. And man, your body is going to relax when I say this. Spring is not asking me to do more. It was asking me to clear out what is blocking. Like I'm planting some things in the garden, right? I know I need to be in the garden, planting the things, preparing so that I have food to eat. I know I need to be in action here. But that action also requires me to do the hard work of tilling the soil and clearing out what is blocking what wants to grow. Because if I have old crops, and we literally did this in our garden last weekend. I did not do this, by the way. My wife did. She went in and removed the old crops so that we could plant the seeds for the summer and fall harvest. But we had to remove what has been there because there's a chance there's going to be some volunteer crops that are popping up. There are going to be some things that don't work. But spring energy is about like possibility. Oh my gosh, not what do I need to force out of me? Because before anything can be planted, the soil has to be cleared. And that is the first piece of working with the energy this season, right? So we know this creation is coming in, and a lot of people talk about that. But there is that caveat that the soil has to be cleared before it happens. And so I want us to talk about that so that we can embrace the spring, the freshness, the ideas that are coming in without this frustration, without this pressure of needing everything to produce, because that's not what it's about. So I'm going to go over 3 ways to work with the spring equinox energy right now at the beginning phases and how you can apply that to your business, your career, your life, so that you aren't burning out and instead you're being deeply connected with nature, your soul purpose, and creating exactly what you want. All right, let's get going. Number 1 of how to work with the spring equinox energy is to clear the blocks. These are your rocks in the garden. If you've ever planted a garden, you know the first thing you do is not plant seeds. You have to prepare the soils. You are pulling the weeds. You are removing the rocks. You are clearing the space. Because if your soil is crowded, nothing will grow well. And the same thing happens in our life. A lot of people think that spring means we need to start everything new, right? But what spring is actually asking is what needs to be cleared so that you can play with the possibility of these ideas. And that is what I realized when I was feeling irritated with this season, is that the ideas, the creative energy was not the problem. The problem was that I was trying to force those ideas into structures that were already burning me out. I was trying to create in systems that did not belong in the garden anymore. Spring energy was basically saying to me, hey, before you plant anything new, I need you to clear this out. Not everything in your life needs to come with you into the next season. Some projects were meant for a completely different phase of your life. That's like that soul contract completing. That's what we're seeing here. Some expectations came from environments that you've already outgrown, right? I can't plant what I tried to grow in Colorado out here in the Pacific Northwest. Completely different environment, right? But if you keep carrying them forward and keep trying to force it, your soil is going to be crap, okay? And the seeds that actually matter, aka those soul aligned values, that orientation point, the projects that are really wanting to come into your field, they don't have space to grow when you're in this forcing energy and creating a soil and a condition that is not conducive, right? So one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself during this time of year is, what is currently blocking the things I actually want to create? So that you can first remove that resistance that so many of us high achieving, do it all, I can manifest quick people do, right? What is blocking the things I actually want to create? Hey there. If your body keeps asking for a different pace than your life allows, if you're moving through the year without clear moments to pause, reflect, or reset, if your intuition keeps whispering and you keep overriding it, Rooted was created for you. Rooted is a seasonal living membership for people who want a more ritualized, spiritually connected way of life, one that actually supports the work and impact they care about. Inside of Rooted, you learn how to live in rhythm with the wheel of the year. When to initiate, when to tend, when to rest, when to release, so your energy stays intact instead of slowly wearing thin. You'll explore your soul contract, work with energetics, and build practices that help your intuition guide your decision, not just inspire them. You get access to workshops like Shadow Work Portal, the Portal of Joy, and the Soul Contract Workshop, along with a growing vault of meditation and somatic practices this community returns to again and again. We gather for live full moon magic calls, bi-weekly coaching sessions with me, and weekly integration prompts to help you stay anchored in the season you're actually in. Rooted is available at a special pricing. You can join for less than $1 a day or receive full year access at 50% off. Rooted is for the curious, for those who want to stay devoted to their work without losing themselves in it. You can join at www.risetoher.com/rooted, or you'll find the link to join in the show notes. I'll see you inside. Number 2, the second thing we're working with the Spring Equinox energy is we are removing stagnation, because another thing that happens in spring is movement. My dear friend Molly, who is teaching the workshop with me, has over 20 years playing in all different types of modalities, and she was teaching me about Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine and talking about the element of wind here. And so movement, wind, nature starts moving again in the spring. An energy that has been dormant all winter begins to rise to the surface. So that in traditional Chinese medicine, spring is connected to the wood element and the liver. Hello, thank you, Molly. And the liver's job in the body is movement, flow, circulation, which is interesting because this is also the time of the year when people feel the urge to clean their homes. We had someone come in about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I believe, and they did a deep clean of our house. And we're going to have them come in every month, right? We feel this spring cleaning energy. Beautiful. Work with it. We have to remove stagnation so that movement can happen, so that we can allow these ideas to flow. We're reorganizing our lives. We're opening the windows. We're shaking things up. Nature is moving again. But sometimes we try to step into this energy of spring while still really holding on to routines and commitments that do not belong anymore. So when we're trying to be in this movement energy and this possibility energy, we're feeling like constricted, like I don't know how to hold all of this insight, right? So we're utilizing old workflows, we're utilizing old expectations about productivities, outdated ways of creating. And when that happens, things feel really stuck. Stagnant energy is at play here. So the season of spring tends to highlight stagnation really quickly. That came up for me big time yesterday when me and Molly were meeting about our workshop. And so this stagnation that's being highlighted, that was highlighted for me, that I'm working through, that does not mean that I don't know how to be in rhythm with earth. It means, wow, I am deeply connected and I'm feeling this. How can I work with it in a really productive and useful way? Because the energy of this time of the year is asking what needs to move. Things are already going to start happening. How do I need to allow it to flow in a more productive way? Maybe that's a project that used to excite you that feels really heavy now. Maybe your routines are no longer supporting the life you want. Maybe the way that you've been creating doesn't feel good anymore. And we have all of this possibility. But how do we work with the possibility? Well, we still are human. That's why it's really important here and why I am so passionate about reminding us that we are fully human and fully divine. We have to support that human structure to allow this energy to flow through. And so that means movement, moving out the stagnant energy that isn't supporting the new that wants to come in. You are not being asked to force new growth, right? The summer is when we're really looking at that growth, right? But spring is like possibility. And to do that, it's asking you to remove what is preventing movement. So that is the second piece of working with the spring equinox energy. All right. And the third, this is where we are going to go from that practical work to the more almost crown chakra, more mystical, because you guys know I love the magic here too. We blend the science with the soul. So once the soil is clear and the energy is moving again, then we get to plant. And historically, the spring equinox was associated with goddesses like Ostara, who represented fertility, creativity, new life. But the deeper wisdom behind these traditions was that spring is the moment when life begins to expand again. Seeds are starting to push through the soil, right? New growth becomes possible. But the gardener doesn't plant everything here. The gardener chooses. And this is where I see a lot of ambitious people lose their energy because they feel inspired and they scatter their intention everywhere. They plant everything. But intentional creation requires something different. It's asking two really honest questions here. It's asking, what do I want to grow and why does it matter to me? Our role in creation is not to control every step of the process. Our role is to know the what and the why, and the how will reveal itself through participation. And when you plant seeds that actually matter to you, seeds that align with your values and the life that you want to cultivate, your energy will start working with you instead of against you because you are nature. If you're like, how do I work with that, Emily? Well, one, you can hop into the Spring Equinox live coaching call replay that's inside of the Rooted Vault. You also can jump in to the Soul Aligned Values workshop where you uncover your exact soul aligned value, your soul code, which is your unique energy orientation point for how to make your decisions that your soul came with, so that you know how to orient what seeds you want to plant, so that when all the ideas come through, you can play with the movement. So if you're feeling the energy of the season right now, the ideas, the restlessness, the inspiration, I want you to just pause for a moment. Take a deep breath. What do you want to tend in your garden? Clear the rocks. Remove what's stagnant and choose the seeds that actually belong there. The seeds you plant during the creation phase will shape the rest of the cycle. And when you're working with the rhythm of the seasons instead of forcing, that wounded masculine energy, creation can begin to feel a lot less like pressure and a lot more like participation. And that magic is available for you when you start harnessing the magic of working with the seasons, when you start to curate rituals, which I will be going over in the Spring Equinox coaching call. Again, you can get access when you join Rooted, free for 7 days, right? And then only $27 a month. And you get access to all of the workshops, the meditations, the energy readings, where we take this work deeper. We apply it to your life, your business, your career, for how to work more in rhythm with your soul purpose, your soul contract, so that you can create, manifest without burning out and feel the deep support. All right, I'll see you here on Monday for our archetype of the week. Enjoy the spring equinox. Enjoy the creation energy. All right, see you later. Bye. Thank you so much for being here, for listening, reflecting, and rising into more of who you really are. If this episode sparked something inside of you or reminded you you're not alone, then you're exactly where you're meant to be. To keep the conversation going, come hang out with me on Instagram at Rise2Her. I always love hearing what's resonating for you. And if you're craving a space to explore intuitive, soul-led living with others who get it, our community is growing and you're always welcome. Until next time, trust yourself, honor your rhythm, and keep rising.